But if I may, you know, I've been just totally curious about how many people watch us on TV based upon the number of people that comment, I see you on TV. I just would love to know if it's 5 or 500. And this is the only thing we've got working to give us any clue of what might be going on. So like I say, I was curious if that could be projected to the entire population and come up with a number with any number of asterisks by it that you want, saying yes, but.
Well, in theory, we can do that in a statistically reliable survey, but I do think we need to update our question to keep up with current realities, you know, the technologies. So.
Right.
Gary had some.
Yeah, my concern was that, if I may, was that if you wanted to do it through a SurveyMonkey tool, something like that would probably give you the type of data that you're looking for there, which is to ascertain numbers of people who are watching.
Who have access to SurveyMonkey and know how to use it.
Yes.
Can't get it from your TV.
Moving on to the overall view of the city, this was a new question that was added in 2004 and asks respondents' view of the city as an organization and looks at the overall direction, how they feel they're informed, those types of things. Only 2 of these items have the national average information, and that's included throughout the report if it's available. So in instances where you see a darker blue bar under the green bar, that's the national average. All but 1 have seen an increase in the scores on the 100-point scale since 2004, and that is I am well informed about city processes and procedures, which has seen a slight dip when comparing 2012 to 2010. That's the second from the bottom there.
Right, clearly I'm not either, so there, I get it.
Yeah. And then this is another question that's been included over the different surveys. We did change how this question was asked. When asking folks how they obtain information related to the city, we before asked them to rank that on a scale of 1 to 6, 1 being the most important. And we typically, I just pulled up the 2010 numbers, we had 185 people answer that question in 2010, and we had 350 some odd people reply to the survey. In 2012, we had 340 people who answered the question. So I think by making that change, we have more people responding to it. And it really stemmed from folks not answering the question properly, and then their responses being thrown out because they didn't fit into how the question was being tabulated. So the items, when you look at the table there from 10 to 12, very similar, not too surprising. And the other category, when we looked at the notes that people made, it was generally word of mouth was the other category. And so that may be something we want to question in the future.
Any guess as to what other is?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth is the only thing we got.
Anything you can think
There's
of?
one was community newsletter, another was my neighbor, so more word of mouth types of things. But I'm wondering if by adding that as a category, maybe people aren't writing it in all the time, but maybe that is the method, so it might be nice to rate it and get an idea of the responses.
One of the things might be, and I think this is what people respond to the most, is they see one of those signs posted that there's going to be a public hearing about this piece of property, and I think that's something that's not broken out, but I think that's a biggie.
Someone down here.
Mr. Carson, don't wink at me, Dan.
I didn't mean to, sorry.
That's, harassment,
happens.
please.
It just happens.
Dan?
We were talking
Not
about
very professional.
we were talking about the other part, and you mentioned the newsletter, and I wondered if that was broken out, the newsletters, or again, you're going to get from 6 to 8 rankings, but maybe that is there's the garbage newsletter, or even just your utility bill. That I know information comes out on that as well. But, maybe that's one of the question possibilities as far as how important that is. I mean, if that's the number 2 thing, then maybe that's the thing we need to be aiming at.
And I think our concern was in adapting the question in 2012 is hopefully moving away from having other be so high on the list. I think we've made a good attempt, and we've made some good progress at actually getting people to answer the question properly. So now I think breaking that out makes good sense into the different.
You've mentioned twice, answer the question properly. I think
Yeah.
it's asking the proper question.
Asking the proper question. That's a very good point. It's a very good way to phrase it.
They're answering, but.
That's true.
Yeah, and along the lines of what Dan said, I really think the Parks and Rec brochure is a biggie, too, and those things. Because we need to find out what things are we doing that work well,
Right.
and which things don't. So that's, and sometimes the Parks and Rec brochure draws people to the website to sign up, or those kinds of things.
So our final two questions that are listed on this survey as regular questions are fill-in-the-blank questions. The first asks, what is the single most important issue? And what we do is take all of those, categorize and sort them, and then rank them, as you see here. The top three that were the single most important issues to the respondents included water, traffic, and growth, followed by the others as they're ranked there. And those lists of comments are available through the city clerk.
I'm
And
intrigued by the reference to slums.
those were the particular words used in the comments. So,
Yeah.
So these are all words used in the comments?
for the most part, yes.
And these are
They were.
categorized, these things go out and they're coded, they're anonymous, but they are coded by region in the city. So can we identify where the references to slums come from?
We could look at it by city sector, yes.
That would be helpful to us, I think.
I find it interesting that for the relatively high quality of life results that we get, that it only popped up as a 2 as single most important issue. That's
I thought about that too, and I guess what I was thinking is perhaps we asked enough questions about it that they didn't comment on it. I don't know. I mean, because it's the same as slums.
Well, when I read the word issue, I think about problem-oriented kind of question. I mean, not everybody does, and that's not the official definition, but issue suggests some kind of friction or turmoil or, something like that. Wayne?
Well, I think that's probably right. I think when we start talking about the single most important issue, it's more of a psychological reaction to what do they think about the most or what concerns them the most, what probably takes up more of their thoughts on these various items.
This survey went out last November, was that right?
September and
September,
October.
November. Okay, right after a whole summer without well number 9.
didn't affect people except they read about it in the paper.
We're talking about perception.
And Playfield is down there pretty low, too, even
Perception
with,
of what they think the issue is. Water, fix number 9.
right.
We're fixing the low-hanging fruit here, folks. We're doing playfields and discrimination tonight, so.
But, we look at Playfields, that's just 2, and we look at what Parks and Rec offerings or whatever that other one was that actually took the measurable dip in numbers. So maybe it wasn't Playfields, maybe it was something else. I don't know.
It very well could have been something else.
Or maybe relative to everything else, it didn't
We just look
stack
at,
up. Yeah.
as
Wayne?
Sue had mentioned.
Yeah, Wayne?
The other thing that comes to mind, too, is I think probably the Brandon can take a lot of responsibility for what these folks think, because when it's put in the newspaper or it's publicized or we talk about water's an issue or we talk about traffic, whatever it is, the more things that we talk about, the more people are aware of them, and maybe the more they think that that's a particular problem. We don't talk about slums. We don't really talk about the quality of life. I'm surprised, though, that poverty, with the poverty on the Palouse and all the discussions that we've had in that area, I'm surprised that actually is as low as it is. I would have thought that would have been a bigger concern.
Yeah, but maybe they feel that we're addressing it, as the issue. We said your name, Brandon. Yeah.
sell some subscriptions for him? He can sell cars.
What seems to be, you do send out,
Right?
just, I don't know if you just pick names out of the phone book or random addresses or what, but how you do this, but I know that of the people that answered the survey, 30% were making between $50,000 and $100,000, 26% between 25 and 50, and 13% 100,000 or more. So only 27% were less than 25,000. So that might be why they didn't think poverty was an issue, because only 17% of the people were lower income that answered this survey.
Do you send these to the U of I dorms?
We don't send them to the dorms, we send them to residential addresses.
You missed all the poverty over there with those poor students with no income.
Anyway, I'm just saying that may be why.
They are sent to multiple family housing.
Yes, they are. Apartments, duplexes, all of those. And something similar, the last final question that's asked, these are just comments and questions to be considered. We do the same thing here. If there is more than one comment included in these, we'll separate those out and categorize them separately. What I should have mentioned with the previous question and with this is not everybody fills these particular questions in, but we do categorize all of the comments in this space, just as we did before.
Your slums went up higher, Mayor.
The comments, I get it. Quality of life is higher here.
But it's interesting, you see sustainability, and on the previous one, water was 46 in terms of the number of comments. And so I think we may not know exactly what we're measuring by these responses.
This is very subjective. There's we're taking people who have sometimes they'll write 4 or 5 words, sometimes they'll write a page.
Traffic is big on both.
Okay.
And so that takes us through the regular portion of the citizen survey. What we've come up with is a 33% response rate, which is amazing for a survey of this manner. It's a great representative sample for the citizens, for the Moscow citizens. These are 86% of folks who never really come to a meeting like this. Very statistically valid, empirically defensible. We'll begin planning for 2014 already. And again, that quality of life rating at 94% is excellent or good is really good to see, and reassuring that we've seen it so many years in a row now. Any questions?
Thank you, Jen. Council members, any questions for Jen?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're getting pretty comfortable with this survey after all the period of time you've done it, aren't you?
I do appreciate that I've done it a couple of times
Yeah,
now.
it helps, doesn't it?
It's like you know what you're doing.